What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench for another episode here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Today we are going to be jumping into the Lando Calrissian version of the Millennium Falcon, so the Lando Falcon if you prefer, and we're going to go ahead and see what trouble we can get into. Now, my main focus today is to try to figure out how exactly I'm going to light some of these areas, start looking at the parts, and maybe even assemble and do a little bit of painting. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I've actually been studying the instruction manual for the last week or so and trying to figure out how best this is all going to come together. Like I said, I did want to go ahead and add in some lighting, and I think the cockpit is the natural place to go ahead and start. That's what we start off with here in the instructions. But of course, how I'm going to do that, I don't really know yet. So I thought today we'd go ahead and start off by taking a look at the parts, doing a little bit of dry fitting, and seeing if I can't come up with an idea, some solution in order to throw some lights into this kit. Now, of course, this is a 1/144 scale kit, so it is not big. There's not a lot of room in there. It's pretty small, but even if it is small, it's got a lot of detail in here for sure. Just looking at the parts and pieces, there's molded in dials, switches, levers. We have molded in seats for the pilot, co-pilot, and then 2 engineers. So we have a lot of very cool detail. Now, ideally, I would love to go ahead and put some fiber optic in here and do a whole lighting job, but to be honest, there's just not a lot of room in there. And some of these parts are not going to lend themselves nicely to actually putting lights in them or drilling holes through them. So I'm not really sure what to do yet. So let's just go ahead and kind of do a little dry fitting and let's see how it all goes together. And let's see if maybe that kind of jogs some ideas here. We've got the cockpit tub, we've got the back bulkhead, and that fits down into the cockpit floor, which is actually 2 parts. And then we have kind of the upper portion of that neck that comes off the saucer that flips down on top of the cockpit and has all the detail on the undersurface of that. It actually fits together very well. Let's also grab the parts for the cockpit floor and put those together as well. I just want to get a general idea about how this is all going to go together. I don't know. I'm not feeling too confident on whether or not I can actually drill through some of these parts to put in fiber optics. They're very tiny details, guys. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to approach it a different direction. But let's go ahead and just throw these parts together. So one nice thing about Bandai kits, they go together well and they really hold their position quite nicely. So I may not have to glue anything. I'm probably going to glue a few parts here and there because, well, it just makes it easier to light block, I think. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think this is going to be very difficult to put together. Let's go ahead and drop the cockpit tub onto the cockpit floor, give you a close-up, and I'll show you guys all the detail that we have in here. This is a great kit, and you know what? Already, I'm having fun. Giving a quick close-up here, you can see we've got 4 chairs, 2 engineers, pilot and co-pilot, and we have a lot of details, switches, gauges, levers, really cool looking stuff molded into both the sidewall, the instrument panel, and of course, the top of the cockpit. A lot of very cool detail. Now, Bandai suggests you put a single LED right here, and it's supposed to shine and kind of come out underneath kind of a half door that they have in the very back of the bulkhead. Why they have a half door there? I mean, aside from just blocking some light, doesn't really look very good. So what I think I might want to do is change that a little bit. Now, if we go ahead and put the top of the cockpit on, which includes that little neck portion that goes into the side of the saucer, we can see that we have a lot of detail on the upper surface of that. That, of course, means that I cannot light that. I don't have the capacity to do any sort of lighting on the roof. It's actually already molded into the undersurface of the outer shell. So I can't do anything with that. I can't poke holes through it. I can't run fiber optics. I can't do anything at all with that. So maybe if I had a PE set or something, I might be able to maybe drop that ceiling just a little bit to fit in some lights. But yeah, I'm not going to do that. So we're going to have to come back and rethink that just a little bit. Now, like I mentioned, Bandai does give you an option of putting a single LED right behind that bulkhead that would shine down underneath the door and kind of illuminate a little bit there in the cockpit. And I've kind of rigged it up a little bit. I don't have a 3mm, so I went with 5mm, and I had to kind of custom fit that LED holder. It works okay, but I don't like how it looks, to be honest. I've got the light kind of tacked into place there, and yeah, it's just not that impressive. It's got a little bit of a hot spot, and it doesn't really illuminate much. It just kind of glows. I'm not really digging it. So I think what I'm going to have to do is we're going to have to approach this a little bit differently. And I'm not really sure exactly how, but let's try something. Now, like I mentioned, we can't put any lighting there on the top of the roof. There's just not enough space. It's all molded as one piece. We can't make any switches glow. We can't put anything like that at all. Plus, you're probably not going to see it much because this is a smaller kit. What we can do though, is if we really wanted to, we could poke a couple holes in the very back bulkhead and maybe do a little fiber optic that way. I just don't like that. That drill bit slips, man, it would destroy half the detail in there. So I don't really want to do that. Instead, I thought, let's try something a little bit different. Now, taking a page out of my X-Wing wing and my ATSD build, I've installed 2 SMDs right in the footwell facing back toward the pilot and the co-pilot. It looks interesting. I kind of like the effect there, and it would bathe the cockpit in that bluish glow, which if you watch the movie, it definitely has kind of a bluish tint to any of the interior cockpit shots. So that actually might be pretty accurate to the movie. And it should be pretty easy to get these LEDs in here because since they're so small, we should be able to just drop them right in the bottom of the cockpit floor and just sandwich them between the tub and the floor. Of course, just drop a little bit of hot glue in there to keep them from going anywhere and we should be good. I also want to go ahead and add in 2 more SMDs in the very back of the bulkhead right behind those chairs. That will kind of flood upwards and give a little bit of a glow, and I'm hoping kind of bathe more of the cockpit in that really cool blue light. That should be interesting to do. Now, of course, to make that happen, I'm going to have to drill a couple of holes right here below the locating tabs for that cockpit tub. That's not that hard really, but that's going to act as our cable path. And we can go ahead and just drop in 2 of our SMDs and actually attach them to the back of the chair. Then the wires will come out through these holes and they'll tie into our power source. So 4 SMDs, 2 for the front shining backwards, and then 2 in the back of the cockpit shining upwards. So that should be interesting. As you can see here from the close-up, it shows you all the lights and the switches and the glowing dials and whatnot that we have here in the Falcon. There's no way I'm putting all of that into this particular model. The scale just isn't right. And what I can do is I can eliminate this weird half door we have here and put an actual full door. And that should be pretty simple to go ahead and scratch build. So that's what I'm going to focus on first. I want to make that door, and that's going to hopefully help to light block the area so that we have most of the light in the cockpit just kind of glowing. So that's going to be our first shot. Then once I kind of get that all scratch built and installed, I want to start painting the cockpit. I'm going to use some NATO black. I'm going to use some sky gray. I'm going to dry brush a lot of the details. I'm going to add in red, blue, maybe green switches. Also work on the seats. I have yellow seat cushions and we have kind of a sandy leather color for the pilot and co-pilot seats. So lots to do here, guys. Let's go ahead and jump into that first time lapse. We're just going to push on, going to get this started. Fingers crossed this goes well. Let's get going, guys. All right, everybody, that was a little bit of a longer time lapse, I know, but we have a really cool looking cockpit. Went ahead and airbrushed everything with NATO black, came in with the details, dry brushed some sky gray over all the panels, making all the details really pop, added in red switches, blue switches, even a couple of green viewfinders here and there. So that's looking pretty awesome. Everything fits perfectly there. Got all the detail on the underside of that roof with little painted switches and dials and whatnot. So awesome. I'm loving it. But I think I'm going to go ahead and call it quits for today. I know we didn't do a lot on the episode, but I think it's a good place to go ahead and stop and pause, try to figure out where exactly we want to go ahead and take that lighting. I do want to go ahead and next episode come back, pop the 4 SMDs into that front cockpit tub, and then we'll just go from there, maybe work a little bit on the other interiors, but I want to get that kind of squared away in my head before I start cutting plastic. So until our next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode number 3 for the Lando Falcon here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.